All right, welcome to this episode of Video Shamanism, but I think it's something more than that because I've got a really cool guest on today. This is, he's not even really my guest, he's more of my cohort and collaborator on this experience, Jon Allen. Jon Allen, welcome to the show.
Greetings. Thanks for having me, Alex. It's been a long time coming.
Yes, it has. We've talked about doing this for a long time, and we did have a practice. We did do something like this on video back in 2012, I guess, but this is live. We're trying to do it live this time.
Right. There have been different versions of this, I think, that we've tried to do, and then kind of did and recorded, and then maybe never even saw the light of day, and then didn't really continue with it, and then feel like the next round we're like, yeah, we should really do that. This makes sense for us, and then it happened, and then it didn't continue. So hopefully we can keep the ball rolling with this one. But I think this is a good start. Never done it live before. I'm in Milwaukee right now, Milwaukee, Wisconsin, and you're in Oceanside, California. So I think that's impressive, even just to begin with. So yeah, I'm excited that we're doing this.
Yeah, the technology is allowing us to do it, and it looks like we got some technical issues, but we'll see how it goes. We're gonna run with it. We'll have the video guy with us. It's like back to what we were saying about why this is good for us, because back when we first met, I think part of the foundation of our friendship and collaboration was the fact that we would be able to have conversations about all sorts of wild and interesting subject matter on a level that we can both, we didn't have to go back and really re-explain things to each other. Because, you go and meet somebody, let's just say you want to talk to somebody about, 9/11. You got to be careful about how you talk to people about 9/11 sometimes. You want to be respectful. You don't want to just like blurt out a bunch of ideas. But when we met, we pretty much were going on this journey at the same time. So we went down the rabbit hole. We started exploring these subjects. And I think that ultimately, I value our friendship and our communication very much because of that, especially.
I agree. Yeah, that was essentially what our friendship was founded on. Because I remember my new roommate at the time, Richard Quiner, he had met you guys because I was back here in Wisconsin, and then I flew back to LA, and then he was like, come meet these new people, and you were right down the hallway. And then we both realized that we smoked weed, and that was the first bonding thing. I think it was like, oh, you smoke weed, I smoke weed, let's smoke weed together. And then we realized, I don't remember how we realized, but we were probably just having a long, deep, probably one of our first one-on-one conversations. We had both discovered that we were both looking into these conspiracy things, and mainly 9/11. And then, you being from New York, you had more of a personal feel to it. But yeah, we were both kind of just figuring things out at the exact same time. So instantly it was just like the depth just was there. So we were able to just keep talking and not worrying about offending each other, and just sharing information. It's like we were on a research team basically. So we'd talk, and then we, go to class later, and then the next day or whenever, it would be like, oh yeah, and then I saw this video, and then I read this and saw that. Did you see loose change? And then have you heard of this guy? And then you've heard of this guy, and it was just kind of never ending from there. And then since then, it's like I always tell people with you, it's the same conversation we've been having, even though it's always about different things, but it's a continuous conversation for, since 2006, maybe. I'm not sure when you moved in there, but I think, maybe the end of 2006 or something like that. But,
well, I think you had gotten into Columbia in 2006 because it was rolling admissions at the school. So every 4 months really. And I got there in January. I think you were already there, but it was
I was there for 1 quarter. Yeah.
Yeah. So it was 2007, 10 years ago is when we first started talking about that, and the context of looking into these videos online. YouTube was around before then, but I feel like, YouTube didn't really take off until that time, like 2007, late 2006, 2007, 2008. That's when it really picked up. So it's pretty amazing that the timing of all that worked out. It wasn't, I mean, because now I'm watching youngins go into a lot of these subjects, and it's really cool talking about this stuff. But I just feel proud that at the time we were right on it felt like we were on the cutting edge of learning about this stuff, because information had not been able to spread like that, ever before until then. So it was a really good time to get into that, man.
It was, I mean, it was like the perfect storm, honestly, just for the whole situation, except for my parents when I came back from LA and started spouting off some nonsense about completely wild bullshit that really scared them. Obviously when your 21-year-old goes away for 6 months and comes back, start talking about fuck the government and all these conspiracies and all these terrible things are happening. So besides that, but that was just kind of a manifestation of my passion about it and how passionate we were both about these kind of things. Like we didn't really, we learned a lot through the years that we were wrong about some things and quick to jump to these conclusions and these and thinking that we knew things that we didn't. But it was definitely, the passion was there. And I think that was part of where our conversations went, so deep and just were like quality conversations because we had so much passion. And like you said, we didn't really need to explain anything to each other, which is kind of like anytime you said something, I'd be like, oh, that makes complete sense. And then I said something, you'd be like, yeah, totally. And then we just build on that and it would just keep rolling. So yeah, 9/11 was definitely the first main one, obviously. And then at that point, it was only 5 years, it was like just had been the 5-year anniversary when I moved out there, so it was still very, very new. I mean, now it's 16 years, but yeah, so there was a lot to talk about, because considering I didn't really know anything about it. So every little detail, every little thing was just like mind blowing. So, and then obviously you can imagine, or anybody else can imagine where that would take you if you start your friendship on 9/11. It's like, it's like everything is possible after that, Yeah. So we obviously that veered into a lot of different topics.
And first project, we definitely worked on because just for the audience viewers listening in or watching, rather, just a little more context situation. We went to film school. That's where we met. So on top of having these really epic, esoteric, existential conversations and things like that, we were learning about how to make movies. And you were there as a writer mainly, right? It was like that was your original
writer-editor, yeah.
Writer-editor, yeah. And I was there for directing and editing. We all did everything, though. We all kind of worked on whatever. That was a cool thing about our school. One of the cool factors is that everyone had to take a subject in all fields of the filmmaking process, and just like going to school, which was very laid back and a very small student body, very artistic, and just a lot of just learning. The way I saw it was like we were learning how to create reality in a technical way, like a filmmaking way. And then we would come back home or back to the dorms or wherever, back to our respective locations, and we were learning about the nature of reality itself. And it was a really good back-to-back experience, learning about it from the technical side and from the mental side of it. And our first real collaboration was for 7 years later, which was 9/11. So that was you wrote that, and we made a movie.
Yeah. Yeah, that was a hell of a way to start. I guess I forgot that was really our first collaborative film project. Yeah, that was interesting. And then we shot that at school. But that was already after we had moved out of the dorms at that point. And
right.
Because we had moved into this, we found this house. We went through a process of Alex's parents came up and helped us look. Did they help? I don't remember. Well, they helped us move in, I guess. But yeah, we went through a process. We found Alex and I and two other buddies, decided that we were going to move into a place together off campus, even though we didn't really have a campus. But we were going to find a house somewhere in the area to live in. So went through a process, looked at a couple of places, but then this one place, I don't think I even saw it actually before we moved in. I think you just called me and told me when I was in Milwaukee, like, hey, we found a place. I'm like, whatever works, sounds good. And I was just like, all right, well, when we pick you up from the airport, we'll just go right to the place. So we found this house, and Alex and me and our other friend Daniel Dalbo and Chris Surdich all moved into a house just about almost exactly 10 years ago in one day or 1 month. So yeah, that the house is where kind of things went to another level. Basically, we had our own space. We didn't have to worry about RAs and people at the dorms and doing this and doing that and being too loud.
That house was dope, dude. I mean, I think I remember finding that house. I remember being here in Oceanside, looking on the computer with my parents, like months before we were ready to move in. The thing when you're looking on Craigslist or whatever, it's like, oh yeah, well, you can get a sense of the houses that are around, but don't expect that these are the ones you're going to move into because that's like 6 months down the road. I remember seeing that house and being like, oh man, how perfect would this be? Right on a cul-de-sac with a big backyard, all this really like hardwood floors, like really cool house. And it turned out that was the house I ended up went there with Daniel. And we were just like, yeah, John and Chris are really going to like this.
And we did.
That's right. We did.
Yeah. And then so that house evolved into many, many things. Alex and I ended up living there for 2 years exactly. I think we moved out on September 15th as well as moving in on it. And so when we made the movie 7 years later, because it was 2008 by the time we made the movie, so it was 7 years after 9/11, we held auditions in our garage, the garage of this house. Made some very, very strong coffee, I remember.
And it was such a grody, like it was just so packed with gross stuff, and it was just cobwebs. Having the garage door open and just sitting there with a little table, having like, oh, step, people just walk up and be like, is this probably like sitting behind the table? Yep, come on up. It just felt like really shady. But
yeah, later we learned that wasn't the best way to do auditions. But it worked out fine for us. We only needed 2 actors, so it wasn't like we were getting too crazy with it.
Oh man, Eric Lorden and Steve Owsley,
yeah, something like that.
Yeah. That movie. If it's online somewhere, right? It's got
on YouTube. I'm pretty sure. I uploaded all those to my Facebook page years ago, but Facebook doesn't like having videos on it anymore, apparently. So anything I've uploaded is like hidden somewhere, and some of them don't work. But it's definitely it exists somewhere for sure.
And that movie it's you know what? Okay, just a little sidebar back. I'll get back to the movie in itself, what it meant for us. But going to film school, and later on, as you get to see production workshop and what kind of movies, like you get to know the people, the directors, the writers and stuff. And then when you get to watch the projects they make or read the scripts, it's so funny being able to like look and see how that movie or that writing is a complete reflection of who that person really is. You watch a movie, you're like, oh yeah, that's totally Nathan. That's a Nathan movie, or that's a whatever. And it was almost like a therapy like exercise, because it's like when people have issues going on, and it's like, or if you have a fly on your face, you'd be like, hey, you got a fly on your face, for that person, and then it'd be like, no, I don't. Well, how would you know? Because you can't see your own face. So it's right. It's like watching these movies and reading these scripts. It's like they don't even see like what they're revealing about themselves in these movies. So it's just, that was like an interesting psychoanalytical process with making movies. But back to 7 years later, in that regard, that movie, I feel like, perfectly captured the vibe that we had with, especially 9/11, and just having this character who is a 9/11 truther, who's an intern, and then he's at this company where the newspaper guy is like staunch, mindless, just like, we got to print the story that will sell, and how this 9/11 truther ends up having to convince him, like, just by showing him the material. And it's just really funny, because that, watching that now, that's exactly, I feel like, how we were at the time.
Oh yeah, I think that was part of the intention. It was like, let's write the perfect conversation that you always want to have when you're talking to somebody about 9/11. It's like, yeah, you want to say all this shit and all these things that you've heard that are like, some are facts and some are hearsay and whatnot. And it's like, it would just be really nice if I could have all the evidence laid out, or if I could show people a video when I'm talking about, like, look at building 7, like, look how it goes, and look at just the collapse of everything. It's like, it's a lot easier when you have the evidence. And then I think that's where the script came from. Is like, well, what if you could have the perfect conversation? What if you had all the evidence? You know, how would your point look? You know, would you still be able to convince anybody? And then obviously in our mind, we were like, well, yeah, obviously this young idiot intern who's wearing an Investigate 9/11 t-shirt.
Hey, intern!
Like, intern. Obviously he'll win the argument because he has, you know, videos at his disposal. But yeah, that was just kind of like our wet dream of a conversation that we was like, man, I really wish I could always tell some guy off like this, you know? And then we made a movie about it, and we did. And it's a pretty classic student film wherein it doesn't look like, we didn't dress up anything. We're in like just like a one small room in one of our rooms in the school, you know, and the kids washing windows, and we got a desk. That's pretty much the only prop, and like a Windex bottle. But
yeah.
But yeah, it was great. It was perfect, and it was a direct reflection of where you and I were at the time, for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was perfect. We couldn't have made more of a self-reflective project than that at the time.
Yeah, for all of you listeners, it's available online somewhere. We'll find the link and post it in the description. But it's called 7 Years Later. Highly recommended, dude. It's great.
It's gonna blow your mind. It's gonna blow your mind.
Exactly. And those are the kind of movies that I know we love to make. We love to blow people's minds. I mean, sometimes gently, sometimes violently.
Yeah. Sometimes you need a little violent head explosion.
Yeah. And that's, you know, it's like, it's funny writing scripts, you know, and just coming up with characters and creating their lives and killing them, you know, at will. They're like, oh, actually, maybe they should die right here. Okay, write it in.
That's power. That's power.
Wow. Yeah. So that's, yeah.
Yeah. And then we made, I mean, at the house, we made, you know, obviously a lot of projects, most for school. I know you shot a couple there at least. And then Nathan shot one part of his one there. Adeline, right?
Adeline, yeah.
Adeline. I think Jeremy, and yeah, everybody kind of made at least a couple of projects, because that house was like, we were the only off-campus hub for our school. Like you said, we had a very small class, and it was, everybody kind of at least knew everybody's name. You know, we didn't really work friends with everybody, but everyone's weird. You know, so it was like easier, like what version of weird are you, and then see if that was like a compatible weird with us. And a lot of people had an overlying like, okay, yeah, we're all kind of the same weird, even though we're from, you know, Northwest, South, and East, and then the middle of the fucking Atlantic Ocean. Daniel Dalbo was from the Faroe Islands. He was our roommate from a place we're not even sure it still exists.
Most likely Atlantis. He's from a lost continent somewhere, and that's where he presumably is now.
Yeah, I think he's got multiple.
Dude, but how many dudes are there in a Dalbo?
More than there were.
Yeah, there used to be one. Yeah, more than there were.
Still don't know the for sure answer. But yeah, we had a lot of parties, and we also had a lot of people using our house as a studio or whatever you want to do. You know, if you wanted to accomplish something, like, you kind of knew that you can come over to our place and get it done and experiment, or just get away, or have a good time, or shoot a movie. Like, it was definitely a place for like a multi-use house for a lot of different people.
Dude, that reminds me, I've been wanting to, I've thought about this for a while, and then I forget. And I'm like, every time I think, I'm like, oh my God, I have to ask John, because I can't remember the exact name of it. But okay, so just a little context is that house had several phases, you know, over the course of a couple of years. In the beginning, it was a certain way. By the end, it was very different. But there was a whole thing we had in the backyard. One of the features of our imaginary world back there is we had a badminton set up, like a net, and on the opposite side of this badminton net, like the other half of the yard, we envisioned this world. What do you remember the name? What was that?
I don't remember the name. I don't know if we
named like something with an like Island.
Might have been something in that realm. Would have sounded right. But we definitely created a whole story of a civilization that started off over here and then migrated you know, across, I think because I had one little weed plant. Remember, I had one little weed plant in the dirt over there, and I think that was kind of like their mecca. And I think it started over here, and we created a whole like backstory to their culture. Then they had to leave and go, you know, all the way to.
We didn't really take care of the lawn over the course of a couple of years, so it started off really nice and green, but by the end, it was just tamped down from all the parties we had and brown. And I remember looking at it at some point at the end. It was just like, well, this whole place is just like Mad Max wasteland now compared to the thriving civilization that once stood here. And I remember having to go in a certain way. Like if we were going to talk about, we had to like walk around the fence. You go under it was just, we created a lot of interesting rituals, and we were just very creative with the entire space. So we were living in our imaginations quite a bit in that world.
Oh yeah. Every aspect of the backyard, and then every aspect of the house itself too. Cause we went and saw a movie Across the Universe, and Alex and I, who else? A bunch of people went, but I'm not sure if you and I were the only ones who influenced our perspective when we went there. We each took a little bit of acid, and in Across the Universe, we see the main character, or the main apartment they had drawn on their walls. And we both had noticed that, like when Alex and I were talking after the movie, it was like, that was a cool idea, you know, it added to the place, whatever. Just like everyone's fantasy is to be able to just draw on your wall, or at least creative people, I guess. So then when we got back from that movie, Alex and I were sitting in the living room, and we're like, why are we not drawing on our walls? You know, we were kind of reckless. None of us were actually paying rent. All of our parents were paying rent. So we were kind of irresponsible. I was only 22. You guys were like 20. And it was just like, this is our place. You know, we'll do whatever the fuck we want. Yeah. It was like, we're trying to create a creative space. So fuck it, let's draw on our walls. And then we started doing it that night. And then it turned into complete, like layers upon layers of crazy stuff on the walls. But we spent a lot of time after all the walls were kind of filled up. The space, real estate was kind of precious. So sometimes you'd have to sit like and lay in a corner, and like that was the only space that you had. So you'd be spending like 2 hours laying on the floor in a corner where like nobody, you know, most homeowners don't know all corners of their house. But because we did all that, we like were so familiar with every part of our living room, our house. Alex and I drew in our bedrooms too, and in the bathrooms. So like every inch of that house and the backyard and the garage eventually.
And the
ceiling, right. Everything had creativity in it, and a story about it, or something like an energy about it. So like we just never stopped creating, even though some of it made no sense, and some of it was disgusting, and some of it was amazing, and some of it was like 4 layers deep and you couldn't even tell what it started as. It was just that it's like a completely different universe, that whole place. And so much so that when we left, they had to basically not rip it down, but they had to strip the walls, they had to change everything, they had to repaint it. Like it wasn't sustainable, you know. Like you said, it looked like a Mad Max wasteland in the back. Like that's kind of how the house felt inside in the end too, because it just went through so much stuff, because we went through so much stuff, like personally.
Yeah, absolutely. And we had it was a creative environment for pretty much everybody that came into our house. Maybe with some exceptions. I know my parents were not thrilled every time they went in there. They're just like, you fucking guys drawing on the walls. It's crazy. But anybody that came into the house was just like, wow, I can just like write on the wall. Like, yeah, sure, go ahead, write on the wall, whatever. Here's some markers, and just let them do it. It was just a creative environment for anybody. And that was one of the things that made me feel just happy about what we were doing, regardless of the consequences. Was just people felt so happy with it. And that is the shoebox that we kept all of the bring it back up to the camera.
Yeah.
Wow.
It's all in there.
Yeah, so that's the actual box where the probably stain colored pencils are in there now that used to be. And that reminded me also, it's another feature of the house that we created was the East Wing. The East Wing was a really cool part of it. We had an American flag drooped over this hallway where all of the bedrooms were. And we put a dark light or a black light up, and that was just our little psychedelic hideaway hallway. And whenever we had parties, I mean, I would go back there because they had to go to the bathroom. We had 2 bathrooms, so. But it was just, that was like a little sacred space, and it was a unique area. And we in the beginning of the house, we took things so seriously, but like in a fun way. It just felt like we had like a little government there, because when we had Daniel and Chris living in the house, as a way to stay on top of affairs with bills and parties and whatever, we would have Congress. So we would basically, we had this ritual. We would draw the shades down, and everyone would put on blazers, and we would play the soundtrack to the movie The Fountain. Did we play the whole soundtrack, or did we just play the last song, Death is the Road Dog?
I think you'd start it in the beginning, and then however long it took, you know. Yeah,
so it was the Fountain soundtrack's playing, and John, you were doing the notes. You had a notebook writing down the minutes of the meetings, and it was just, that was a hilarious part of one of the phases of the house, is getting together and having these official meetings about what we needed to do. And the East Wing, it just felt like, I don't know, we had a very unique way of looking at that house. And I mean, thanks a lot to the people that were there. Chris was I remember the day Chris arrived. That was, we were very much anticipating Chris's arrival, because like you said earlier, you and Chris hadn't seen the house yet. So once you got there and Daniel was there, and I remember Chris was the last person to show up. We had to pick him up in, was it Burbank Airport, I think? Mm-hmm. And he had like what was his leg or his arm? He had a cast on it or something.
He had to like, they had maybe a benign tumor that they had to like take out of his leg. I remember they took something out of his leg. It was like, ended up being okay, not a big deal, but yeah, they had to like surgically remove something from his leg.
And he was pretty much the doctor. That guy came in and in so many ways conducted a lot of our ceremonies for the next 6 months or so, which was awesome. We had a lot of amazing, hilarious experiences, first time experiences, and long lasting experiences. And just we got to get him on the show at some point. That would be really cool to do. Like if we could, all of us on the show, to recount on some of these stories that we're missing too.
Yeah, I haven't spoken with him in a long time either. Just even said hello. I still don't think I have his phone number. I think he might have given it to me a couple times, but I have not been good at keeping up with him for sure. But to hear his perspective would be interesting, definitely, because I'm sure he'd remember a lot of things that I don't remember.
Yeah.
But we definitely
I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, go for it.
Last time I saw him was somebody was doing. Do you remember that guy Cody? He was like, went to school with us. He was, I can't remember. This guy Cody, he was kind of quiet dude, had long hair, but he was doing his thesis film at the very end. And this is after the house and everything. And the last time I saw Chris, we were doing a project for this guy Cody in a grand Freemason lodge in Pasadena. Okay. And I showed up to this shoot not knowing Chris was there. It was right after I got my iPhone, my first iPhone. And I remember going into this Freemason lodge being like, oh my God, this is like hilarious. What a sign. And then turning around is a dude wearing a cloak and one of those masks from Eyes Wide Shut with the long beak. And he pulls off the mask and it's fucking Chris.
No fucking way.
In a Freemason lodge. I'm like, what the fuck? That was the last time I saw him, I believe.
Wow. That is very fitting somehow, in a very mysterious Chris kind of way.
Yes.
But yeah, you were saying of like the definite phases that we had in the house. So it started off one way, kind of more, organized with Congress and tried to like get groceries and who's going to buy the garbage bags. And then I remember reading, because I still have the Congress notebook, like trying to have family dinners, like make spaghetti on Sunday and watch The Sopranos and trying to be very organized, trying to be regimented. And then two of our roommates, Chris and Daniel, decided that they were going to be moving out of the house, that their time had ended. So Chris moved out first, and then Jeremy Seward, our tall Alaskan friend, moved in. And then Daniel moved out, and our goofy Michigander friend Corey Aikman moved in. So that kind of, there was a transition time in there between those, but it was definitely segmented to the first four and then the second four, and then I think when the latter two, Corey and Jeremy, came in, I think changed things quite a bit in a I don't know, more of a partying way possibly, and just kind of more of a chaotic, not in a bad way, but just kind of like at that point, I think we all just kind of promoted this insanity within all of us. So we were all kind of just like, just kind of brain orgasming all over the walls. So that's when we were just drawing all over the place and staying up till 5 a.m, doing whatever, talking and coming up with movies and shooting random little, like, I got this idea, and then just shoot something real quick with Doritos and whatever, just a bunch of crazy stuff. So it went from trying to be very ordered and regimented to just kind of a free-for-all. It worked. We all were fed and we drank and we slept and stayed alive and passed school and did our projects, but I'm not sure how exactly. It was just kind of madness for a while, but it was exciting. And that's kind of when more people started coming through the house, and just kind of like friends coming over, like our buddy Mike LaScala would come over a lot. He was a hell of a character, is a hell of a character, just like hard to describe, but a big teddy bear.
Yay!
Woo! Yay! just brought out a unique energy.
Can just.
I think that's what it was. We always brought a lot of characters in. We attracted so many characters. Like nobody was just like, just a lamp just sitting there. It was just like everybody was so much themselves. They were all so weird, like I said, and I use weird in a very endearing way because everybody was weird. We're both weird, but everybody was just brought their own creative energy and greatness to this place that it just kind of ended up being all over the walls and in the backyard. And that's why, we spent so much time in the backyard. That's partially why the grass died, because we trampled it to death. It wasn't being used. Like we used that house, as much as we could. We got all of, we were in the kitchen all the time. We were in the little dining room. We were in the living room. We were in the east wing. We were in all the bathrooms and all the bedrooms. At times we always, we all spent time in other people's bedrooms, like just hanging out and have a weird late night conversation, whatever it is. Like that house got a lot of use from us.
We grew some pot, we grew pot. We grew pot.
Yeah.
That was
not well, but we did.
We did. Was there like a bug issue or something?
Yeah, that stemmed from we think Alexa's furniture,
baggage and stuff. Yeah.
Yeah.
We actually had bags with bags inside of them. There was just so many bags. I remember.
Bags upon bags, and then her couches were in the garage for a while, and I mean we don't know that that's what happened, but obviously we were upset, so that was an easy thing to blame it on.
Yeah.
So that was. Do you remember at what stage you and Alexa moved in? Like what?
I want to say 2000. I'm pretty sure we started dating in 2008, late 2008, and it must have been like 2009 that she moved in. I just remember 2009 being the most like chaotic year.
Wasn't it around Halloween when you guys started? Because she was like dressed as a vampire. Wasn't that like we were at a party?
Oh yeah.
That's where it started.
Super messed up that night. Yeah, it was Halloween. Yep, she was dressed as a vampire.
Late 2008, and then into 2009.
Yep. And then Jeremy came in 2008, right?
Yeah, I think he came in the end of September. Or wait, Corey came in September and Jeremy came in March, I think, of 2008. So okay. They both came in 2008.
Okay, so what was it now? Now this is a funny story. I think that'll help segue into the final act or the third act of this discussion, which is the kind of the ending of the house. But Jeremy, it was funny. I remember that night where it was after he had moved in, and because we would always be in these conversations and talking about all sorts of stuff, and my uncle's book, Biology Belief. I would always pretty much pitch that book to people and tell people about it. When Jeremy moved in, I showed him a copy of a video that Uncle Bruce did, and he was in his room. We were all in our rooms, I guess. And Jeremy comes knocking on my door, I believe, and was just like, dude, or you came in, we're like, Jeremy's freaking out, and like,
Yeah, he was
pacing back and forth in the living room.
He was in the living room. I was having a weird night because I was journaling pretty steadily at this point. So I remember what I wrote, and I've reread it since then. And I was feeling weird because my diet has always been bad, but I think I had some weird leftover something or other. So it was just making me feel really weird. So I was like, I just need to get out of my room. I was just like barricaded, and I felt like, So I go out, and Jeremy is like, clearly something's going on with him in the living room. Like, he's not like making any noises. He's just like distraught and like pacing, and just.
And he
know him that well, but I was like, "Are you all right, man?"
Yeah, exactly. He pretty much had just moved in, and we ended up getting in this conversation with Jeremy, and he, long story short, had a pretty epiphomatic experience from watching that video, which is pretty, in my experience, common with hearing about this science of perception. And it's like in an articulated scientific way. It's something that you've always known. It's like common sense that just how, your beliefs can control your life, but hearing it articulated in that way, a lot of people in my experience will be like, damn, I've always known that, but hearing it in this way, it just means it's a big deal. And it obviously hit home with Jeremy. I think that opened up the gateway for all three of us to start having these pretty epic conversations. And at that point, okay, in 2008, anytime something new came on YouTube, like after looking into 9/11 or looking into the alien stuff, and I remember you got that book, Project Handbook for the New Paradigm? Was that the name of the book? Okay, so that was an interesting, I think it was like a YouTube video or a website, and this guy was like just sending out this book for free, and it's called Handbook for the New Paradigm, and it's just kind of exactly what it says it is. It's got a very concise list and layout of everything you need to know, basically, of the cliff notes of what the hell is going on in the world in terms of aliens and consciousness and reality and all this stuff. So I think like from 9/11, we went, and it was just like anything that popped up on YouTube that was new, one of us would find it, we'd share it with each other. And it was just, I remember, at this point in 2008, scrolling through the video feeds, I'd see a video. Okay, I've seen all these videos. I watched all these videos several times. Okay, where's the new stuff? And I'd see this little video of this guy. He's got goofy blonde hair, and it's a crappy little camera angle. And it's just like talking about, I don't know, like time travel, and like in a few of these videos.
The Montauk Project.
Montauk, right? That's right. And I would see these videos, and I remember even though I've seen everything else and I hadn't seen that one, for some reason I was like, I don't know about this. I'm not interested in that video. But then I'm pretty sure it was you that was like, dude, have you seen that video? I'm like, no.
We knew what we were talking about. We'd both seen like the thumbnail of it, and this weird, because the quality wasn't that great, and like the lighting was weird. I remember it was very monochromatic, I guess. I'm not sure. It took more than just a casual thing. You had to like look into it. But I feel like you might have started watching it or something like that, because as soon as I started talking about it, you knew what I was talking about. Yeah. And you kind of came across it right around the same time, just like everything else. We were kind of linked up in that way. And then we were like, yeah, you gotta watch this video. This fucking guy, David Wilcock.
And that's how we learned about David Wilcock. That's how it all began. And those videos were amazing. Ironic. I remember like watching them and thinking like, what the hell? Why was I putting this off? Like, there's so much amazing information in those early videos. I guess it was interviewed by Project Camelot, and those guys talk about the Montauk Project, the time travel experiments, and the alien technology that they back engineered with the chair that interfaces with your consciousness, opening wormholes, and like it was. But it was more interesting with David Wilcock. Not just the information, was just something about the way he presented the information. Like up until that point, it was like we had all of these incredible puzzle pieces, and we were putting the puzzle together ourselves. And there was just so many like crossover stories and things like that. But when we started watching his stuff, it was like David had the ability, and he still does for the most part, of like stringing the whole thing together in a narrative that makes sense with like an authoritative kind of understanding. Like he has watching this right now, and you don't know who David Wilcock is, I highly recommend you check it out, because He's got a lot of really interesting information and just the story of how he got to that point. It was kind of like resonating with what we were going through. It was like listening to how he came to that point, and he's got to be at least 10 years older than both of us. But just the story of how he got to that understanding really resonated with what we were going through, of just following these signs and these synchronicities and seeing how things are all connected and having a voice that really just put it all together. It was like awesome. And so what was it? I think I was doing a Psych K, and that's another thing to look into later on for all of you listeners, is Psych K. We'll do another talk on that eventually, but to stay on topic, was doing this workshop, this energy thing workshop, Psych K. And one of the instructors there is involved with this organization called the Mind Body Spirit Business Network. And I don't know if they're still around anymore, but they've had workshops where they had guests come on and do talks. And it was right around that time. It was in 2008. One of the Psych K instructors told me, it was Karen Johnson. She told me, she's like, oh, David Wilcock is going to be there. And I'm like, David Wilcock? And she's like, oh yeah, you want to go? And I'm like, fuck yeah, I want to go. So we ended up going. We both went the first time, right? Yeah, that was because this is the story. So that was it. It turned out it was just like one of those synchronicity things. We found David Wilcock, we got to that point, it all came full circle, and suddenly David Wilcock shows up in a town near you. It's like we got tickets to go see him. And okay, so we're very much into the synchronicity thing. We smoked some weed. We get in the car. I think it was like 222 or 111.
222.
We got in the car at the house. We're like, all right, we're getting ready to go. We look at the clock. It's 222. Of course, synchronicity.
The show didn't start till like 6. We were leaving like way early, so it's not like we were planning to leave at any specific time. We're just like, we want to get there early. We want to whatever, just get situated and stuff like that. So it was very synchronistic that we left at 222.
Yes, exactly. And the whole time we're riding down there, we're listening to music, and we're driving down the 5 or the 405, and we're just joking around. We're just coming through traffic. We're just joking around, being like, how funny would it be? It's like, we wouldn't be surprised at all if we just saw David Wilcock hitchhiking on the side of the road. Oh yeah, Dave, we're heading to the same spot. Come in, and we're just like, how funny would that be? Little did we know how on point we really were, because we get to the hotel. We find it's the Crown Plaza Hotel, I believe it was. We pull in, and we're pulling in behind this car, and we're right as we stopped, because we were in motion pretty much the whole time. Right as we stopped, look at the clock. It was at 3:33. So it was exactly 100, like an hour and 11 minutes later. And we're just like, oh, wow, the signs and the synchronicities, whoa. And then right at that moment, like next beat in the script, the car in front of us, the door opens up. Getting out of the car is David Wilcock wearing the exact same outfit he was wearing in the videos we just watched. He gets out and turns around and looks right at us, like sitting in the fucking car. We're just like, holy shit. And that was it, man. That was like, I remember we pulled into the parking spot. We just like, The Lion and the Wolf by Thrice was playing. Yeah. We were just like, let's just sit here for a minute.
It was so surreal. I remember that. I remember how, I think he even waved to us. It was like he knew that we knew him, or we just looked like total creeps. That were one of the two. But it was just like, yeah, just turn and look right at us, and our faces just must have been like deer in headlights. Just unbelievable, you know, like you said, because we were joking about it the whole time, and then it fucking happened, and we were like 3 hours early or 2 hours early. Like, what are the odds that we pull in right after him? Just, it was surreal. And
it's just the timing of it. He just gets out of the car wearing the exact same outfit and just turns around and looks right at us. And it was just like, I get chills thinking about it. It was so trippy, but it was awesome. Doing a show. My mom's over here. Come over here, Mom.
Hey, Cindy.
How you doing?
How's it going?
Hey.
Hey. Good to see you.
I'm doing well. How are you doing?
Not too bad. Not too bad. Just talking about the good old days, you know?
Yeah. The good old days.
The good old days. Exactly.
You remember those days.
Oh, yeah. Big one. How are you doing? How's work and whatever?
No, it's whatever.
Yes.
It's life. It's going. It's not bad. I was just telling Alex, I think if we would have thought where we were going to be when we met 10 years ago, I think we're doing okay right now so far.
Yeah, absolutely.
We got a ways to go, but I think we're doing okay. And I think
Yes.
part of it's because we got good parents.
Aw. Well, we try.
Yes.
Well, as you finish doing your thing, it's so good to see you. You got to come out sometime.
I'm planning on it. Trust me.
Cool. All
Well,
right.
darling, say hi.
Take care, John. Take good.
All right. Cheers.
Bye.
All right, bye. I'll see you later.
How long are you gonna be?
Not much longer. Not much longer. So yes, that was funny little synchronicity, but I think that was one of the main things as far as the discussion topics we definitely wanted to cover. That was for all of you listeners out there. We were like, we have to tell the David Wilcock story, but in order to do that, we have a lot of building up to do. And you know what? I think it worked. As you know, we'll have to review, and for all of you listeners out there, definitely give us some feedback. I'd love to hear your thoughts on the matter.
Agreed. And I actually think that's a good place to wrap it up too. And then we could finish up on the last chapter of the house, and then the exit of everything as its own thing. But I think that was a good overview of everything, and then the culmination of the synchronicities of everything. Like started off meeting in the dorms, looking at all these videos, and then culminating with the David Wilcock videos, like him being kind of our number one source, and then ending up in the exact same place as him at the exact same time. I feel like that's quite the path to go on, and then end up. So that was definitely a hell of a story, and still kind of surreal to think about these days. Like you two, I still get chills thinking about that. It's just like, did it really happen? But yeah, it did. So
yeah. And you know what? It's a testament to synchronicity. I think that's exactly what David Wilcock said, because eventually when we went into the hotel and we were able to talk with him and we told him the story, like, we were like, oh my God, and I'm sure he's got to hear that shit all the time. Yeah. Like, just like crazy synchronicity stories from people. But he mentioned that he was just like, well, it's a testament to the nature of synchronicity, and how if you stay focused and you have a vision, you keep walking on that path and you opening up your consciousness in that way, you become more like-minded with the creation of life itself, and then you're just going to be attracting all sorts of stuff like that in that field of consciousness. So for everyone listening in and on that path right now, it's definitely exists, and you don't need me to tell you that. But if you're ever doubting that, just remember you're not alone, and it's really amazing, and excited to learn about your own synchronicities out there too in the world.
Sweet. Well, this was I'd say a great start, Alex. I'm feeling good about it. Hope whoever watches eventually, if it's right now or if it's in 1,000 years, that they are enjoying the perspective. And yeah, I always enjoy sharing these kind of stories, and we got plenty more where that came from. But I think this was a good start to whatever this turns into. So I appreciate you inviting me on to have another conversation with you. So always a good time.
Well, let's do it again, and we'll keep building on the story, and we'll have some guests on. We should definitely try to get Jeremy and anybody, really. We got a lot of people. Got to have Skylar. I want to hear all about her European adventures, and
definitely
a cool forum. So yes, thank you, John. Love and appreciate you. I honor your path, and I'm really excited to be on this show with you.
All right. Godspeed. See you.
Peace out.